Hello, and welcome to Replay Value. Slight spoilers for the first OVA episode and the new Thesis episode 1. It's nothing major. I'd imagine almost everything I'm talking about here will be tackled by episode 2 of the new Thesis, but I wanted to state that before I get into analyzing the specific narrative elements I want to talk about. And also, just briefly, I want to give some credit to Production IG and anyone else working on this project. Legend of the Galactic Heroes is one of those shows that's going to be pretty hard to top, just because people have romanticized the original to a degree that's frankly unrealistic, but not without good reason. It's a really good space opera with a very strong sense of style that gives it an almost timeless feel, but it's not perfect, and it does have some faults. I'm not saying that the pilot of the new Thesis is therefore perfect. I do think the character designs are still lacking, especially on the side of the Empire. What the hell did they do to Royenthal? But almost everything else about episode 1 made me feel that if you haven't seen the original, this is a perfectly acceptable alternative. The visuals have a good punch, capturing the scale of a space battle well. The OST feels like a mix of Alderaan on the Sky and Star Wars. Take that as you will. Binary Star made me feel emotional to see these characters again, even if the OP's visuals were mostly an homage to old anime OPs with all the character fades, and therefore not the most inventive thing in the world. So why do I feel so good about this series? Because if you compare the first OVA and this first episode, the narrative here is much more focused. The original OVA attempted to cram the introductions of all of the characters into a single episode. Throughout that first OVA episode, we see the camera constantly cutting to the cast of not just one faction, but 3 factions. We start with Reinhardt before quickly jumping to Phazon, and then basically a constant back and forth between the FPA's fleets and then the various Empire forces, whether that's Reinhardt's fleet, the Empire at Iserlohn Fortress, or the Emperor on Odin. This scattershot focus has a clear goal: introduce the entire relevant cast as quickly as possible, set the context for the mission, and give us the background of the 2 principal characters. So this first part of the Battle of a State isn't really the focus. Instead, the cutaways become the important elements of the episode. Learning that Reinhardt's usual staff isn't with him, that Lap and Yang think differently but thoroughly, that the Admiralty expects Reinhardt to lose. Because of this, we're more so told that Reinhardt is a genius firebrand making his way up the ranks than shown it. The battle becomes a talking set piece for the protagonist's inevitable confrontation. We know it's coming because of the constant cutting to these 2 characters and their factions. For the record, this isn't a bad thing. It's okay for the first episode to be broad and set up the rest of the story. The new Thesis, on the other hand, decides to throw away breadth and instead hone the focus of the audience attentions upon Reinhardt. Instead of a waffling narrative that kills the momentum by constantly cutting to unfamiliar faces, New Thesis decides to focus on developing Reinhardt and using him as a powerful driving force to press the momentum and command the audience's attention. As a result, the progression in the episode does not feel choppy and disjointed due to this constant cutting, but rather a smooth crescendo that begins softly and builds to intoxicating heights. As we get our brief introduction to the universe of Legend of the Galactic Heroes, the narrative frames the characterization of Reinhardt through 2 primary conflicts. The first primary conflict is the obvious epic confrontation that is about to occur between 2 gargantuan space fleets. The second conflict, however, lies in the power struggle that occurs between the Old Guard and the up-and-comers. Through both conflicts, Reinhardt is characterized to be a bold, unconventional conqueror that presses on despite the odds. In the Battle of a State, conventional military wisdom would place Reinhardt's forces at a tactical disadvantage, and his admirals, representing that orthodox mindset, propose what would seem like a logical course of action to withdraw. Yet Reinhardt in that moment is shown to utilize the thought process of the past to create new strategies to overcome that old wisdom. While lesser men would flee, he attacks. And in that attack success, he usurps not just the supposed superiority of his elders, who claim to be enlightened by time and experience, but the supposed outcome of a battle, which proclaimed his defeat through conventional wisdom. Reinhardt is a man who forges his own destiny. We do cut to the FPA twice, once to show how unprepared they are, and secondly to show how there are people who can respond to Reinhardt, but unfortunately they're being held back by untalented superior officers. The opposite of what's happened in Reinhardt's fleet. This decision allows even more focus on Reinhardt, as his strategies wipe out the 4th and 6th fleets, and shows that the Empire is fortunate that Reinhardt has ascended to this leadership position, since the only person on the other side we've been shown who maybe could have put up a fight was unfortunate to be below someone who didn't care about strategy and was more concerned with dying gloriously. This is also great foreshadowing for Yang, as he ascends to leadership after his admiral is injured in combat and proceeds to take Reinhardt off guard, as he's been lulled into this sense sense of absolute superiority over his opponents. In the OVA, Reinhardt's nervous about the hero of El Facile, but in the new Thesis, he's unaware of anyone from the Free Planet Alliance who can match him in strategy or tactics. And in fairness, as we travel alongside him, we're more or less of that opinion as well. We briefly see Lap attempt to change plans, but they're ignored, and we have no basis for whether that plan would have worked out. This leads the viewer to question whether anyone can stop Reinhardt. In the OVA, we know that Yang is going to be able to match him. We watch him predict Reinhardt's plan, we watch him set up for the attack on the Second Fleet, we know that he's mentally able to compete. Even Reinhardt in the OVA is aware of Yang, and that's my favorite change for the new Thesis. A Reinhardt who doesn't believe that there's an opponent he can't defeat, a Yang whose face we never see but a voice that comes over the intercom, and that voice saying that he won't lose is much more threatening and awe-inspiring. A Yang who's set up for a counterattack, a Reinhardt who suddenly realizes that he's getting his wish of an equal opponent as he's playing right into that opponent's hands. That's a brilliant introduction for Yang Wenli, especially because of the expectations it sets up and how, if done properly, powerful the subversion of that will be. I cannot overstate how beneficial I think this streamlining of perspectives is to the overall narrative of the first episode, especially because how it cleanly sets up this theme of youth taking the mantle of leadership. Reinhardt, who seems to be the youngest of the leadership we see, is able to lead the way to clear victory, even as the older admirals want to retreat. Fahrenheit, who is also young, as Merkatz points out, is the only one of that group who is excited to see this plan in action. And Merkatz even mentions that old soldiers just fade away, in a kind of sad tone. Even on the side of the FPA, the older, more senior soldiers are the ones unable to change tactics and properly respond to Reinhardt. Again, Lap's attempt to pursue change of plans and then death by incompetent leadership are more proof of this. And Yang stepping into the mantle of leadership after his commander is injured seems to suggest from a thematic perspective that he will be able to give Reinhardt more of a challenge than the Admiral could have. So overall, I'm pumped for the new Thesis, way more so than I was a week ago. Episode 2 has a lot to live up to, and I'll be interested to see if they rewind the battle a little bit to set up more of Yang's character, or if we'll go straight into the counterattack. The narrative of the battle is the same between the OVA and the new Thesis, but the means by which the story is told, the perspectives, the focus, those seemingly small changes create a vast difference in the scale and tone of the episode. Yang's character, built through themes and contrasts, is set up as a worthy match to the brilliance of Reinhardt that we watched for 22 minutes, and that, in and of itself, makes this remake pilot worth the watch. Thanks for watching. Leave a like or comment if you want more Legend of the Galactic Heroes, subscribe for more analysis, and follow us on Twitter for updates as soon as we have them. Check out another one of our videos right now if that suits your interest, and we'll be back real soon.